Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 367 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. What's up this fine Monday, Richard?
Doing well, Seth. How are you doing?
I am doing spectacularly. Kamigawa looks super sweet, and I cannot wait to start playing with these cards. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We got another co-host in Krim. Good morning, Krim. How are you today?
That's me. Hi. I haven't gone to bed yet.
Oh, well, good evening then, in that case.
Good evening, yes.
Oh, the Krim schedule. So anyway, today... It's gonna be all Kamigawa pretty much. We have the full main set out. Probably by the time you hear this podcast, we'll also have the Commander Precon spoilers. They're supposed to be coming out today, but we're gonna talk Kamigawa stuff, new cards from Kamigawa, themes, our overall impression from the set. If we get a chance, maybe talk a little bit about if Magic cards are getting too wordy. Apparently, Kamigawa is the wordiest set of all time. It came out over the weekend, some research on that, and then answer some fish mail. So that is the overview for today. Before we get into it, though, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit, and we've been telling you about Card Conduit, a great way to sell your Magic collection, and their curated shipment service for a while. And the curated shipment service lets you sell your valuable cards with a reduced service fee as long as your cards have a retail value of at least $2. You can send as many as you want and only pay a 5% fee. And like with all of Card Conduit services, you don't got to sort your cards, you don't got to grade your cards. You get to skip all those hassles and just safely package everything up and ship them out, and you'll get a detailed report with the results. So you can check out Card Conduit's curated shipment option as a way to buy list cards with fast processing, optimized prices, and the low service fee of just 5%. And you can even get another 10% off by going to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thanks so much to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Kamigawa. Let's start with some spoilers. The full set is out. You can see it all over mtdpreviews.com. Sort it, filter it, check it all out. But we have a handful of cards that are interesting, exciting that we want to talk about individually. So Richard, why don't you take it away and guide us through some spoilers?
So let's start off with Ishin, 2 heavens as 1. Red, white, black, 3/4, legendary creature, human samurai. If a creature attacking would cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Oh my god, this card is so sweet. This is probably my overall favorite card from this set. It's a Panharmonicon for attacking stuff. It's just so cool. It's the first commander I'm going to build from this. I know we got Wolfgar, which is like a bad version of this in a commander precon a couple years ago. I haven't been able to play it because it's not on Magic Online. So this one will be on Magic Online. And interestingly, it's a 3-mana 3/4. I almost wonder if there's a chance this could show up outside of Commander as well. Like, its stats aren't bad, and if you can build around it, the ability's really, really powerful. But what do you guys think? Is there any chance this card can see play outside of Commander, or is this just like another sweet legend for Commander?
This screams Commander. I can't play this in Standard. I'm going to get laughed at. And then I'm also going to help my opponent scry after they're done laughing because it's going to get bounced back to my hand. And I'm going to feel real bad that I played this. However, you know what's really cool though? Dodges Frostbite. And wait, no one's going to play Snow Stuff because the payoff is Faceless Haven. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too harsh on this card. And you know what? Okay. Anyone listening, this does not mean I won't lose to this card, because I will lose to many cards. But the thing here is I just don't see this being a haymaker in Standard.
Oh, imagine this.
What's the best trigger? Like, what's the best Mardu attacking trigger that we could get from this?
Oh, Ranger class? That's not even in Mardu.
That's green.
Okay. So do you want the really janky plan? All right, hear me out. And this might be more alchemy than Standard. It's really good with the best Venture into Dungeon cards, like Triumphant Adventurer, Nader Selfless Paladin. They trigger to venture into a dungeon whenever they attack. Does this card mean dungeons? Are dungeons a thing now? Mardu dungeons. Come on. Come one time. One time, Magic
I don't
Gods.
think getting double dungeon triggers even makes dungeon viable. With the alchemy buffs and the doubling, I don't know if you still want to be doing this.
Yeah, I recently played a dungeon deck, and I'm like, yo, they need a lot of help here. Like, it's not even like it's the dungeons themselves. That's the problem. The dungeon themselves are not that good. Like, there is no back-breaking payoff for it. Like, like for all that building around that you're doing, you're just really not getting enough of a payoff. So that's a big problem. So
okay. Double treasures with Goldspan kind of makes it almost free. 2 treasures.
They were already winning off of the 1 treasure.
Okay. Wait. Delina Wild Mage. Double dice rolling.
Does anybody play that?
No. The pingy werewolf, double pings. Double reanimation with Olivia. That could be fun.
Okay. Is Olivia played normally? So do you think this enables Olivia? I mean, it's in the colors. It's 2/3 of it.
I think we're definitely playing bad cards to make a bad card better as far as standard is concerned, but it seems it's just such a sweet design. I'm going to try it. This is a card I want to break the most in 60 card formats. Whether or not I can actually make it happen, that it might be a stretch, and it's probably going to be an against odds deck, but I'm certainly going to build decks around this card in standard, in modern or whatever, because I love it. It's just such a sweet card.
Whoa, wait. Standard, sure. Let's play ball standard. I'll even humor you in historic. Modern?
Coco into it.
Modern?
Boom. Attack you. Double up my whatever. I don't even know.
Wait,
but there's gotta be something.
In a non-against the odds modern deck, you would play this?
I would.
yeah, okay.
That doesn't mean
nice
it's
answer,
correct,
nice
but I would.
There's not a lot of good attacking triggers, so I don't know if it's worth.
Yeah, this stream's commander.
The body is terrible. Seth says it's okay, but it's not 1999. Like a 3-mana 3/4 is not okay, right? It needs to do a lot more. It's legendary too, which is also a problem. You can't stack them. Like, you can at least stack Panharmonicons or something, right, to make your payoffs actually work. But if you actually just draw 2 Issues and no payoff, it's horrendous.
I'll meet Seth in the middle. I will say this is better than Circle of Loyalty.
I don't know about that.
Circle of Loyalty had some theoretical upside, though.
Whoa. The theoretical upside of this is way better.
So if they have a creature that attacks, and on attack trigger, it deals 10 damage to an opponent, and it's like a 2-mana 2/2 haste, I can see
Inferno Titan? The Titan cycle?
Croxus? Croxus pretty legit.
Yeah. Actually, hold on. That's see, already better than Circle of Loyalty. And no matter what, it costs 3 mana. Wow.
All right. Next up, we have Biting Palm Ninja, 2 and a black, 3/3 creature, human ninja.
Oh my god.
Ninjutsu, 2 and a black. Biting Palm Ninja enters the battlefield with a menace counter on it. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a menace counter from it. When you do, that player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, exile that card.
Is this card not beautiful? This card is everything you would like. Okay, so Seth and I, we do the top 10 videos, right? And so we talked about for historic, yada yada yada. Dude, Ingenious Infiltrator only gets better the farther back we go, right? And it's not like there wasn't already at one point, at least I played it. It was the Sultai Ninja deck. You've got Fairy Seer, the Ice Fanged Coatl thing. You bounce that back. You hit him with the Biting Palm Ninja. Then you, of course, Ingenious Infiltrator, bounce this back. And yes, this card is sweet. I would play this in Modern. I would play this in Modern. I would play this in Standard. I would definitely play this in Historic, and I will definitely play this in Standard. Modern.
But did your deck get better when you played it? That's my question.
Yes, it did. I mean, okay, let's not lie here. Sultai Ninjas and Fairies was pretty low after Oko got banned, but I think that's 99% Oko boosting the archetype. However, I will say this card made it marginally better. You have a ninjutsuing Elite Spellbinder that exiles the card permanently. Is that not good?
I mean, I'm actually kind of with Krim that I think this card's really good. Like Vendilion Click,
Standard, right?
Elite
Which-
Spellbinder.
No, modern. Even
I
modern.
think that so in modern, of course, you got the problem that it's 3 mana, so Lurus decks can't play it, but in a ninja deck, if that is a thing, and it's been like enough of a thing that it occasionally shows up as a 5/0 or whatever, so it's not that far away. But I actually think that outside of Ingenious Infiltrator and Ninja the Deep Hours, which are like the double S tier ninjas, I think this is just like the best ninja that they ever made. Like I think it's really, really good. So I think it's got a shot in modern. Like 3 mana creatures that Thoughtseize with their ETB, which this doesn't do exactly, but it's basically the ninja version of it. Like I don't know if Vendilion Click's good. Elite Spellbinder's good. It seems like this has to be good too, right? Or no?
This is conditional. Like the cards you listed are non-conditional, and those cards are kind of fringe, right? Like they're only played in their, well, I guess not Click, right? But like Elite Spellbinder is not played as a staple. So in ninjas, maybe your ninja synergies make up for this. But do you just want to play like 3 mana 3/3 Thoughtseize, and it's not just Thoughtseize.
Better
You have
than
to bounce.
Thoughtseize.
You have to
Better
bounce the attacking creature, right? And you had to attack successfully, right? Like that's a big deal. It's not simply a 3 mana 3/3 that, exile Thoughtseizes, right? So like, would you play this in a generic deck? Like ninjas I could see because of synergies, but
What
just
about-
like any black deck in standard?
So
Wait, we're talking about like standard or modern, or because like in standard
Let's start standard. Once we've got standard, we can move on to modern.
okay. So
standard's a house.
any deck, I don't know if I would just say any deck that has black mana, but if you're a black deck that has evasive creatures like Eye Twitch and can reasonably ninjutsu this, then I think the answer is yes. Like, I don't think you got to be a ninja deck. Like, if you have enough evasive creatures that you can consistently ninjutsu this on turn 3, then I think the card's like great. Like, really, really good.
Yeah,
Well,
like I'm
do
right
we have
there.
any good ETB creatures on the curve for black?
Off the top of my head,
Not really.
not that I can think of, but let's take it. Let me get back to you on that. I'll remember by the end of the podcast.
Okay. I think you sold it. I think it could be played. Like if we had good ETBs to abuse.
Alchemy, right? You have the captain. You can bounce captain back to your hand.
I mean, and I
Cast
think
it
it depends. It depends on your exact build. Like there's a 1 mana 1/1 flyer that scries 1 ETB, which we've seen like Fairy Seer, which scries 2. So you play in modern ninjas. It is blue, so you'd have to be like blue-black ninjas. So that would be a possibility. Maybe like Spectral Adversaries, kind of cute. Like you can pick it back up and
Skyclave
phase stuff out
Appetizer.
later. So in black, I don't know if there's a ton, especially if you also need evasion to make it work. But I think there are enough good options to build a pretty powerful deck around it in standard.
No, like legit Skyclave Appetizer, Brutal Cathar. These are cards that maybe they're not in black, but they are things that you like. Of course, Elite Spellbinder itself. Actually, if you really want to be annoying to the control deck, you bounce that back and then you hit them with this, and then you play that again.
All right.
So
How serious are we for modern? Are we really playing this outside of a ninja deck in modern, or is this just a strictly ninja tech for modern?
okay. Ninja Tempo and maybe Rogues and Fairies. That's 4 decks.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like picking up your spell stutter sprites or picking up your ninja stuff, like that's really good. But just jamming this into like Jund or something is probably a non-starter.
But, like,
Well, Jund plays
like
Lurus.
a tempo deck that's not a ninja deck, right?
Yeah, Fairies.
Okay,
like
yeah.
like Spell Stutter Sprite right now is like probably at an all-time high, right? That card is like absurdly good.
I have
Minus
seen a lot of
Primeval
people
Titan.
playing that lately for some reason. Yeah.
I wonder if you've played against me. Like the only time I log on, I was like, hell yeah, let's live like Bitter Blossom just came out. Let's go.
All right. Next up, we have Risona Asari Commander, 1 red and a white, so 3 mana value, 3/3 legendary creature, human samurai, haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, if it doesn't have an indestructible counter on it, put an indestructible counter on it. Whenever combat damage is dealt to you, remove an indestructible counter from Risona.
Oh, so I wanted this one on the list because I'm really curious if this card. Do you think it's good? Is it good at all?
I believe the kids would say this slaps, or this is very cash money.
I don't know what those words mean. Does that mean it's good or not?
It hasn't clarified anything.
I would say, yeah, this seems pretty good, right? I mean, well, I think it's good. We have an issue of grading cards on a 2011 curve, right? But I think in the year 2022, a 3-mana 3/3 haste that can it has to deal combat damage to a player.
It has to hit it itself has to hit someone to get indestructible counter, and then when you are hit, you remove an indestructible counter.
Oh, in that case, if it has to hit to get the counter in the first place, then I'm going to walk back what I said. The kids do not say that about this card. What they do say is, I learned this from Valorant and having voice chat on. It is dog water. So that is not good,
Great,
Seth.
yeah.
That's the
okay. I mean, my dog loves water. He's always drinking. Bear's always drinking stuff. I mean, really, though, this seems like, here's my thinking. I think this could be a good sideboard card. So what I'm envisioning is like, you're playing your random Naya mid-range pile or some sort of Boros pile. I don't know if this is worth it in the main deck, because if you play against mono green or mono white or some iTwitch deck, like, they're just going to hit you back, like the Monarch and Commander. Like, sure, you get indestructible, but then they hit you and it's not indestructible. But against a control deck, this seems like it could be kind of legit. Like, you get in that one hit, a control deck isn't likely to have creatures to get the indestructibility counter off of it, and then it's going to be really hard for it to deal with. It doesn't get hit by Vanishing Verse, even one of the big instant speed removal spells. Downside is it does get bounce still, which is a bit of a issue potentially, even though bounce spells are kind of on a downswing since we've had the latest BNR and we don't have, Epiphany decks at the top of the meta. You don't see as many Fading Hopes as we used to. But what about just being like a sideboard sniper to bring in against control and fight through Wrath or whatever against control?
I mean, the thing here is that would be great if, because like, I think there's going to be a huge shift in the removal that's played. Everything will have to be instant speed to combat vehicles, creature lands, obviously all the good creatures, ninjutsu. So I think instant speed removal is going to be an all-time high. Of course, dies to removal is a bad argument against, because everything dies to removal, but I don't know, for 3 mana, if this connects, I'm not even sure it wins the game with Indestructible, right? You have Shadow's Verdict, a popular sweeper, which ignores Indestructible, and you have Fading Hope, which just bounces this. So normally, yeah, like, dies to removal isn't a great argument, but there really is a lot of things out, like, that are efficient answers right now in Standard.
And I mean, I think it's a good argument when the whole gimmick of the card is being indestructible. Like, the whole reason you play this is so it doesn't die. So if it's still dying, then it's a 3/3 for 3. And we know that's not gonna, we're not in Bogart Ram Gang era of Standard anymore or whatever. So
it's also not big enough. Like, say you somehow manage to get it down, you can hit like your control player like 5 times and they're cool with it, right? Before they dig up an answer. Like, it's not like increasing in threat. It's not really doing much. And, like a 3/4 blocks it. We were laughing about Ishin, but turns out Ishin being a 3-mana 3/4 just like stops this cold in his tracks, right? Like, so while it sounds nice, there's like so many gotchas to it. So, initially I had the same thought as Seth, like, you slap down against control player, what are they going to do? And the answer is they're going to get hit 6 times and then deal with you afterwards, right? Yeah. Like, it's not enough. It doesn't snowball like the other cards we have today, which is good in terms of game design. But with all the other cards that snowball, like, it's not the same, right? Like, if this was like a Rangers class or something that like drew you cards and kept growing, then yeah, this would be outrageous. But
not even comparing it to, like, obviously one of the most powerful green cards in Standard. Like, regardless, just within this set, I just don't think it does enough, right? Like, because, like, there's so many better things I could do in this set for 3 mana. I could literally play more vehicles. I could play,
It's also legendary, which is another, like, this is where you like shake your head at Commander, right? Like, it's now legendary, so like it lowers the quality for Standard. Like, you can't jam 4 of them in your deck. You can't build your deck around it. It's like very difficult to navigate now that they're legendaries. Unless you really want to go crazy and play Mirror Box or whatever, but it's a little awkward, right? Because if they somehow do dispatch it, you want a second one to keep your game plan going. or, better yet, you stack 2 of them, right? Like, if they really don't have an Exile Wrath, now they'll die really quick if you have 2 of them attacking every turn, but you can't because they're legendary.
I will say, in general, I feel like we get too many legendaries now, but I'm really willing to give Wizards a pass on Kamigawa, because that's kind of like the whole gimmick of Kamigawa. Even the original Kamigawa was like, wasn't that like one of the original sets with a whole bunch of like uncommon legends and stuff? So in the case of Kamigawa, print all the legends you want. Although I will say, like, the versions of this that were good, the more I think about it, like a Danto Vanguard or Season Hollowblade, they were both 2 mana, and the difference between 2 and 3 is kind of big, and you didn't have to like hit your opponent to make them indestructible. So I don't know. The more we talk about this, the lower I'm getting on it for for standard play.
Wow,
right.
we're ruining Seth's fun. Seth is like the kid on Christmas, like, look what I got, look what I got, and we're just like, that sucks, dude.
Next up, Richard and Krim explain why Panharmonicon's not good anymore. Thanks, guys.
Well, actually.
All right. Next up, we have Thousand-Faced Shadow, a single blue. So it's a 1-drop, 1/1 creature, human, ninja, ninjutsu, 2 blue, flying. When it enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking.
Oh my god, those cards, like the best ninja. Like, all right, if you've ever played ninjas want 2 things. They want 1 mana or cheap evasive creatures to ninjutsu off of, and then they want things to ninjutsu into play. This does both. It's like a split card. This is your eye twitch or your changeling outcast or whatever like evasive ninja you need, but it also is kind of absurd if you ninjutsu into play on turn 4, because it's going to be able to copy your ingenious infiltrator or your biting palm ninja or whatever like crazy ninja you have, and it doesn't say until end of turn. It sticks around. Like, it just makes a token copy of it that's there forever. Yeah. It's not like the red ones that go away. So I think this is like a foundational ninja for ninja decks across formats, all the way back to modern. Yeah. I think this is the 1-drop that makes the deck work, essentially. It's just so perfect for what ninja decks want.
If you're playing a ninja deck, this is in it. It's as simple as that. This is in it. There, and it's not like, oh, maybe it's a 1 of. No, it's a 4 of. This is in it. This is exactly what you want, much like Seth had mentioned. And that, that still blows my mind. I first read it as, and the tokens go away at the end of the turn, right? That's what I remember when I was reading that card, because that's just naturally how most of these things go. But no, they're permanent. They stay. Hello? That's amazing.
Crazy. So good.
Yeah, this is, I think, the first good card we've talked about.
Whoa.
All the way back to modern, right? Like, it's like so good, right? Like, it does everything. And it's actually kind of narrow in the sense that, it goes in a ninja deck, but it's like an early game bomb as a 1/1 flyer. And then when you ninjutsu it, you get to actually use its ninjutsu ability, which copies something permanently, right? So this card is really good. All ninja decks, modern, commander, standard, alchemy, whatever, right? Like every format you can play this in, it seems really good.
I think so Richard just took a dump on our favorite cards. He just said biting palm ninja's a meme and says no card.
We got Richard to like a Magic card. It happened.
Yeah. We won.
This card is just so OP that this is basically Circle of Loyalty. Like, I don't know how, like,
what?
I mean, it's possible this doesn't see play because ninja somehow sucks, but like that would be shocking to me. This card seems like super pushed for the ninja archetype.
Yeah, like if ninjas are good, this card is good. If ninjas aren't good, then we got
wording,
question,
Seth, wording. When ninjas are good.
Krim, remember Circle of Loyalty and our hype for Knights and how they did
this
nothing?
Is how the Magic gods will get us. Ninjas are unplayable trash, and then like the most hype card.
I'm calling it now, and I'm willing to eat my words at the end of the year or at rotation. Ninjas are.
Umezawa fixes all ninjas, right? Because everything's a ninja now, so it's like it's got to be good, right?
Right, it's gotta. Yeah. But on top of that, just like without Umezawa,
the archetype has to be good.
Ninjas are still good even without Umezawa. Ninjas will be good. They'll be so good that you thought Settle the Wreckage gave people trust issues. Wait until ninjutsu happens. Kamigawa was nowhere near how big Magic is now. So when oh boy, I can't wait to see how the new people deal with ninjutsu. And it's just like, that's an unblocked goose. Do I kill that? I gotta kill that, right?
But is there any way to pull off the GG emote trick with ninjas, Krim? That's the real question.
Oh, yes. The equivalent to that is I say GG, they use removal on it, and I've got a grip full of lance.
All right. Speaking of ninjas, yet another legendary ninja, Kotose, the Silent Spider. 3 blue and a black, 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card other than a basic land from an opponent's graveyard. Search that player's graveyard, hand, library, for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. Then that player shuffles. For as long as you control Kotose, you may play one of the exiled cards and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it.
Okay.
So, like extirpate, but you can cast that card.
A 4/4 extirpate, by the way, in the ninja tribe. Did you mention Umezawa just a few seconds ago? And also, is 90% of the reason why I put this card on here because I'm in love with the showcase art? Yes. But on top, but the 10% also is like, yo, that's a ninja that you could cheat in. Okay. This seems like it could be good. It could be good as a one of. This is like a nice spicy one of.
This card is weird to me. So the power of extirpate or like surgical extraction is that they're cheap. I can't imagine, especially outside of standard, that a 5-mana extirpate's going to be fast enough. So I kind of crossed it off my modern list. In standard, it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Hostage Taker in a weird way, how you get this ETB that also allows you to cast the thing, although you're not getting anything off the battlefield. So I don't know. And then it's not really worded in a way that makes it that exciting for Commander. I guess you could just play it in a theft deck just because it's a way to steal your opponent's stuff. But in Commander, everything's one-ofs anyway. So an extirpate doesn't really do a whole lot in almost all decks. I mean, I guess if you're running my Shadowborn Apostle deck, you got me, but otherwise.
Nice Shadowborn Apostle deck or not. But legit, I think that, okay, the one thing is the cards that you have mentioned, yes, they're cheap, but they're card disadvantage, right? Like they don't do anything. They don't give you a body. This is a 4/4 that could be fun in the late game because now you can you're like, you don't just have to pick a card like that you need to hate out. You can pick their utility spell. You can pick, I don't know, something useful, right? And then you can play that.
I think picking something useful is probably a good plan. I'm on board with that part.
Yes. But the thing here is, like, I'm avid, like, I'm pretty much against the unmoored egos and whatnot outside of like maybe a format where it has a bunch of decks that are extremely reliant on like 1 to 2 cards, right? So like if I'm able to like unmoored ego or Tron land, that's great. But like in standard, I didn't play that except as a meme. And then like, yeah, like in historic, I wouldn't play that. So, but this here allows, it kind of gets around.
I feel like it could be a good fun of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know about it actually
I think
being
you play
good.
it for the art to flex, and then
yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. I'm trying to
you didn't
justify
throw the game because you played this card. Instead of spending 5 mana or using your ninjutsu ability or something useful, like you decide to play this.
This is like
it's so
Gonti.
expensive for an extirpate. It's so expensive.
It's more than an extirpate. Come on.
And its body is not very good. It's only a 4/4 for 5. Like it's 2022. 4/4 for 5.
For a ninja, anything above 2
the
power.
Dream is they played a really powerful card. You somehow didn't die. It's in their graveyard. You play this, you untap, and then you play that powerful card back to kill them. Like,
hell yeah.
It seems very convoluted.
You know,
I mean, I actually feel like the best use is going to be to get to like 7 mana and just like play this, hit a removal spell, kill something. Kind of like Hostage. You remember playing with Hostage Taker where like you're always really nervous about running it out without being able to cast the spell that you're exiling because if your opponent kills it, then they get everything back. So you try to wait sometimes until you have enough mana to get something and cast it right away to get around that. I almost wonder if this is going to be played in a similar way because it does have to stay on the battlefield. It's not like a Gonti where you exile the card and can cast it forever. It has to stay on the battlefield to cast it. So I don't know. I think the card's cool,
just
but
a 5 mana Snapcaster from your
wait,
opponent's
I'm
graveyard
gonna
is how you're playing
steal
this.
basically.
gonna steal all your channel lands. I can't do anything with them, but like the thing here is I'm gonna steal them or your MDFCs, and you're gonna be so upset, dude. You're not all my land count.
You're deck thinning for me, Krim. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. This is definitely 90% showcase art. Why I love it, and then I'm gonna jam it because of that, and then I'm gonna be like, oh man, why didn't I just hold up counter magic?
All right. Moving on from ninjas to vehicles, Reckoner Bankbuster, 2 generic mana, 4/4 artifact vehicle. It enters a battlefield with 3 charge counters, 2 and tap, remove a charge counter, draw a card. If there are no charge counters on Reckoner Bankbuster, create a treasure token, a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token. With this creature, cruise vehicles as though it were 2 or its power were 2 or greater. Crew 3.
This card is the truth. This is not only an honorary ninja, it's a goblin, it's an everything, because I think it's gonna go in so many decks. Like, this thing just pretty much has changeling on it. What did we have last time? Treasure Map? That card wasn't even that good now that I look back on it, and that was like played. But like Mazemind Tome was huge, right? So this is just better. Like, this is just strictly better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this card can be anything but very good. Like, to me, it reads like a mostly upgraded Mazemind Tome. And Mazemind Tome's a card that you still see a little play in Modern sometimes, and like Eldrazi Tron decks. We just played it in Historic on stream like a week ago, and not for like a meme, but because it was actually like a card we thought was optimal. This card seems so good to me. Like, in the early game, it draws, then eventually it beats down. It can be aggro, it can work in control. I think the only time when I would prefer Mazemind Tome is maybe in like dedicated creature free control, where the 4 life is really relevant and you might have a hard time crewing this. But outside of that, I feel like in mid-range and aggro and in control decks that can actually crew it, this seems just like way better Mazemind Tome. And Mazemind Tome was like a legit standard staple. That card saw play in so many decks. So I think this card's really, really good in standard, and probably has a bit of a chance to see play in older formats too.
All right, break our hearts.
Blocks, right?
Yeah,
no,
or attacks.
Right?
Richard likes it.
You know, like if you're a control deck or you're a slow deck, right? Like, you have some dirty creatures, you can actually just suit up and block to buy
and still
you more
activate
time
it,
to actually draw the cards, right? So it's really good. And you can attack if for some, like, you're playing control mirror or something. Your opponent has their pants down, right? You're like, okay, crew up, attack, right? Like,
you laugh, but lol.
Even just like,
Soaring?
pressuring a planeswalker. Even just pressuring a planeswalker is huge.
Pressuring planeswalkers while also playing those planeswalkers means you're pooping out bodies, so you're able to crew this. It's more likely than you think it would, just because things incidentally make bodies.
Plus, we have that land that does it. So if you're a control deck, you can play a copy or 2 of that to turn it on too.
Oh,
maybe it gains you more life than a Mazemind. So like, if you block one thing, you've kind of gained the 4 life that Mazemind Tome would. So I think it's even better than I was thinking it was.
It's also a win con, right? Like, this is your finisher. This is better than Snapcaster Beats.
This is much better than 2-1.
What do we think about the motorcycle rat art? How are we feeling?
The motorcycle rat art is definitely a meatball, and I'm kind of like, okay, I can get down with that. But I'll be honest with you. I like it probably a little bit more than the normal art, just because of how absurd it is.
I'm just totally hyped for standard being like modern day gangstas. Once we get to New Capna versus rat bikers, like, that's like the sweetest idea. Like, who wouldn't want to play rat bikers versus gangster standard?
So we're going. Let me get this straight. We're going to have a School of Wizards versus Vikings versus rats on motorcycles and Nico Bolas in a trench coat and a Tommy gun. Got it.
My immersion crib. High fantasy. All right.
So many people just like rolled over.
Bukotai Soulripper, 1 in a black, 4/3 artifact vehicle. When I can't say this
Bukotai?
word.
Me either, apparently, yeah.
And I'm also not sure
Soulripper attacks. You may sacrifice another artifact or creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Soulripper. It gains menace until end of turn. Crew 2.
All right. I feel like this is like I feel like this card's busted. I feel like this is like the best card in the set, non-land category for standard. Maybe I'm like too too hyped for this card, but when I read this card, it reads absurdly powerful in our current format. Like, it's evasive, it's going to get huge, it's already above the curve, and we're in a standard where black decks are all about sacking stuff. You're sacking eye twitches, enshambling gas, and this can sack artifacts like useless blood tokens, like semi-useful treasure tokens. I'm
Blood's useful
so
now.
So scared of this card. So I don't know. I feel like this is like top 3 of my favorite and I think best cards for standard from the set at least. And I think it's got a chance in older formats where like Black Aggro decks and Pioneer, they're all built around these recursive 1-drops, Bloodsoaked Champion, and that's like the core of those decks, which are like free sacrifice fodder. And this attacks on turn 3 is a 5/4, and it keeps growing throughout the game, and it gets menace. Like, this card seems absolutely busted to me. Am I missing something, or is this card busted?
I mean, yeah, like I'm kind of right there with you. I think this card is very, very good. It just does everything you want it to do, right? And last time we had mentioned, when we were talking amongst ourselves, like, Smuggler's Copter was pretty good, right? Like, it was a pretty decent Magic card. And Mono Black played that, but now Mono Black has a different vehicle. Just it being a vehicle means that it gets around all the sorcery sweepers, so now your opponent's got to have a nice mixture. They can't just be board wipe city, or else they lose the game. Because this will grow, and the sack outlet is absurd. So it is as good as I think you think it is.
Is this like offensive Lovestruck Beast?
I mean, it kind of feels like that to
it's
me.
It's like so big,
stats.
right? Like turn 3, you're attacking. You're basically turning any of your dirtily drops, like whatever you're using to crew this, into like a 5+ power creature, like a Lovestruck Beast, right? So irrespective of actual synergies. So this just seems really strong. You can't, like, if you want to block, it becomes more difficult. But as an attacker, I think it's pretty strong. And it makes everything Lovestruck Beast, right?
Yeah, and it keeps growing throughout the game. So every attack you get in is going to add another counter and make it more likely that it can get in the next attack. So, wow, this card just closes out the game so quick.
It's like if Lovestruck Beast had Menace, just for funsies, right? Like,
just for funsies.
Like what? Just for funsies.
And we have decks for sacrificing subs and upside. Like, you want your Eye Twitch to die. You want your Shambling Gas to die a lot of times. So I feel like it's not that hard to build around this with what we have in current standard. Like, the card pool just supports it so well.
All this talk of sacrificing Eye Twitch, and no one once asked how Eye Twitch feels about this.
So older formats where the thing you sack can actually just crew, like, Gravecrawler.
Yeah.
Bloodsoaked Champ doesn't even play that, but you could. The thing that's haste and landfall thingy that everyone plays.
Brushfire Elemental?
No. The 2/1 Spirit Black.
There's a black landfall creature?
Yes. The thing that all like sacrifice decks play, graveyard decks play. Oh my god.
Cauldron Familiar?
Bloodghast?
Cauldron Familiar.
Bloodghast.
Oh, Bloodghast.
Bloodghast.
Yes, there we go.
Like there's a lot of legitimate creatures that already see play today that can see play that can be recurred quite easily to keep this going.
I think it's got a shot. Modern? Modern, maybe. I actually think Pioneer and Historic, I'm really high on it. Like, in Pioneer, there's already a mono black aggro deck that's using Bloodsoaked Champion, Dreadwander is our 1-drops. Those are both recursive 1-drops. This seems just built to go in a deck like that. Same with Historic. You can build a mono black deck with those same cards and have this really powerful thing that you're kind of crewing for free by sacrificing your Bloodsoaked Champion or whatever. Modern becomes a little more hit or miss. I think it'd be possible to build a deck like that, but there isn't like a pre-existing tier deck, I don't think, that this just slots into. Although
it's called all Lurus decks.
It does work with Lurus. That was where I was gonna go with that. Like, it does work with Lurus, and Lurus kind of doesn't mind things going in the graveyard, so I think it's got a shot even in Modern.
Beautiful crews this.
Yeah. I mean, crew 2 is not that high of a number.
That's what makes it beautiful. The fact that it's got a low crew cost and it itself is cheap. So it's exactly what you want.
It's giving me Smuggler's Copter vibes. It's like so easy to crew and like so easy to enable. But it is black.
I honestly feel like the vehicles from Kamigawa are as strong as the vehicles from Kaladesh, which were the broken ones. They got banned in some formats, with the one downside being the Kamigawa ones that are strong all have colored mana. So I don't think we're going to be able to see the like ultra staple level play just because it's not going to fit in as many decks. But in the decks these vehicles fit in, I think they're on par with the Heart of Kirin's and Aethersphere Harvesters and Smuggler's Copter era vehicles.
All right, speaking of vehicles, the blue one, Mindlink Mech, 2 and a blue, 4/3, artifact vehicle flying. When it becomes crewed for the first time each turn until end of turn, it becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3. It's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types, and it has flying. Crew 1.
Yes, please. Yes, please. This card is amazing, right? And because, like, specifically, look at that down at the bottom. That is crew 1. That's a very easy task, like a very low bar to hit. On top of that, it gives you the evasion. You know what? Ninjas in a frickin' flying ship thing. This is possible. But like legit though, the cloning clause I think could be pretty big. Think like some of the cemetery cards, like Cemetery Illuminator. When that enters the battlefield or attacks, right? You exile a card from the yard. So now, you know, like the turn you play the Illuminator, you can crew using the Illuminator. Now this is going to attack. Of course, there's just numerous things that you could have this become. The world's your oyster, as long as it's non-legendary. And I think that's pretty good. And as long as, you know, we were kind of memeing earlier on attack triggers, but maybe there are enough things to where like them attacking and connecting is good enough. Like another ninja's ability, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think ninjas is a good home. When I look at vehicles, and if you think about the ones that are good, you're looking for 3 things. Big stats, so above the curve stats, which 4/3 for 3, check. And then you want evasion, flying, check. And then you want additional upside, which cloning something that accrues, also check. To me, this hits all the marks of a playable vehicle. I think that even without the upside of the cloning thing, just having this big body is pretty impressive. It's going to close out the game really quickly. I got to say in standard, there's one thing that has me really excited about this, which is a Efreet Flame Painter. A Efreet Flame Painter, 4 mana 1/4 with double strike, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you can cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. It's so perfect for this in standard. I've tried to make a Flame Painter work in standard, and if you can hit someone with it, it's kind of busted. There's no mana restriction. You can be casting your 8 mana sorceries, like huge, big, splashy things. The problem is it's all 1/4 ground creature. It's almost impossible to actually attack with it. But you can play this, and then the next turn, Flame Painter, and immediately crew it, and smack with a 4/3 double striker, and cast 2 things from your graveyard for free. Like, that sounds kind of absurd. Or like Dreadhorde Arcanist in Historic. Can you imagine like a 4-power Arcanist attacking so you can flashback more expensive spells? So I think there's actually some really sweet, just really, really sweet shenanigans with this card, and it comes attached to an above the curve body, so I think this one's really, really strong too.
I think there's gonna be a lot of salty players. I think this is like the most unfair card ever. like people are not gonna do
what?
like fair things with this.
Oh, definitely not.
Right? Like they're gonna use this as a way to give your like insane card invasion and haste, right? And like smack, like Seth was saying, you smack people, get your triggers, like whatever. Like this will not be used in a fair manner. So I actually think this card is like a little problematic. We'll see what people brew up, but it, you know, it gives me like combo vibes, which I don't know if we're ready for that in standard. I guess you can remove it, so it's not like horrendous. It's like you can still interact with it, but you will probably die out of nowhere because of this card.
Yeah, the vehicles are the strongest part of the set, I think. I think the vehicles from this set are just so good, which caught me by surprise because after Wizards printed like the busted first run of vehicles, they haven't really printed very good vehicles outside of Azeka's Chariot, which I think is unique because of its ETB trigger, but discounting Chariot, which I think is kind of an accident, like...
You also forgot about the submarine, the blue one that just does
Silent
nothing.
Submersible. Yeah, I literally forgot about that card. I've been trying to forget since the day I read the spoiler.
I mean, yeah, they did a good job, right? Like that, like much like Seth had mentioned, I did not expect vehicles to be one of the more powerful things to come from this. So, wow, good job.
Yeah, I'm really excited to brew around them. Like, all the vehicles are just so sweet.
Good job. If they made Smuggler's Copter again, I'm not sure I want to hand out the good job to them. But, you know, there's colors on it, right? Like, it's fixed. You can't just jam this in literally every deck, right? There's colors on these vehicles. You know, there's actual, like, stipulations. So maybe it's okay. But I think Seth is right. They are pretty strong, surprisingly strong. I thought they were gun shy about vehicles after the first incident.
I feel like Wizards did the same thing with equipment too. It seems like their current technique, because equipment went through the same issue where it was really busted, and then we didn't even get anything close to playable equipment for a long time. And now we started to get slightly better equipment. And I think that Wizards' technique is add colored mana with vehicles and with equipment. That seems to be their like solution to being able to push the card type a little bit. And we'll see if it works. I mean, if these vehicles are just good and they don't break anything, then I think that would be a pretty good sign that theory of making colored artifacts rather than colorless artifacts is actually a pretty good one for Constructed.
Give me colored GT. Come on.
Yeah, right.
Set. give me like a single blue GT. So I think those are all the cards we want to talk about. Any thoughts on the set as a whole? How do we feel about the themes of the set?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I was skeptical heading into Kamigawa. I've never been a huge Kamigawa fan. I always have thought of it as kind of underpowered. I don't have any special connection to the flavor of it. And the set won me over. After seeing the spoilers, the flavor is great. The cards seem really strong. I think this might be the strongest set in Standard, or at least one of the strongest sets in Standard. Overall, I really, really love this set. My only criticism, and I hope I'm wrong here, but the sagas seem really bad. We haven't talked about many sagas during our spoiler podcast because I think the sagas are just like really, really, really bad. So that's my one disappointment. They're probably going to be sweet for limited, I guess. But as far as 60 card constructed formats, I feel like the sagas are a really big whiff. Every other part of the set, though, themes, flavors, mechanics, power level, I just love. It's so good.
Yeah, so I'm actually I resonate with Seth there in that I think everything outside of the sagas are actually really good. But I will say that the sagas do have some pretty cool artwork on there. They're very like visually pleasing. This time around, I'm kind of surprised. Like they went, like the expectations, right, for this set were very high. And I think that they were able to not only just meet it, but meet it and go a little beyond. They hit every checkbox. I think in power level, it's not like an Ixalan miserable, of boring. It's not like, I guess I can't say this yet, but I can't imagine this being Eldraine 2.0. And then on top of that, it's got wonderful flavor. They did a good job. There's literally a visual novel coming out with this. And I'm not saying that just because like technically I'm in it, which I mentioned to Seth earlier that I think this makes me canon in Magic. But like legitimately they went all in on the story here. They added story, they added, they gave us Tameo complete. They did so many cool things. They casually brought back Phyrexian mana, by the way. I don't know if anyone just that kind of just got overlooked.
For one card. Only one card got it. I feel like we're still building to something with that, with the Praetors and now Phyrexian mana. Like, we gotta be building towards some big return to Phyrexia at some point, probably next year, I think, because we already know this year's set. So I'm expecting like that's what next year is going to be about.
Oh, for sure, right? Because I mean, they're like representing that they're slowly building up each Praetor. So we're going to see them kind of sprinkled out through the multiverse.
Yeah.
I mean, I like how they put the Praetors in here without overwhelming the flavor of the set. Like, I think when we did Battle for Zendikar or whatever, like, we lost the Zendikar feel and it just felt like weird Eldrazi set. So here we have Praetor presence, but it's still, like, very Kamigawa. And I think the showcase cards are, like, amazing. I think the alternate art styles and everything really add to the flavor of the set. And so much that I'm actually thinking about buying a collector's booster or set booster box for the set, which I generally don't buy.
They got Richard.
They kind of got me, right? With like all this cool, like, like if I open like some garbage card, like what is this, Imperial Subduer? I don't know, but it has cool art. I'm like, cool, you know what I mean? Like, I could collect some, anime cards or whatever, play with them in some sane game. There's a lot of commander cards here. Like, we know there'll be commander staples. There's a lot of legendaries I want to play with, the channel cards, the equipment, the vehicles. So like it actually, oddly enough, it doesn't feel like a standard set to me. It feels like a commander supplemental product, but it's like, and it has like really cool art. So like I'm all for buying it. And then I guess I'll play standard with it. But I'm more excited about the other aspects of it. Like I actually like unironically want to play Ishin, but in commander and not in standard. Right? Like it's a pretty cool card, right? So
Yeah.
I think they did a good job, and I think the sales will reflect it. We'll see if everyone's a weeb or not. We'll see if people get in on this showcase style. Because I can see people being like, this is not the fantasy I signed up for, right? But people have been saying that for a long time. And then, the lands. Don't forget about the gorgeous lands that are coming in the set as well, right?
I mean, the thing that gives me hope is I'm not really a weeb, and I don't really know like anime or whatever, and I think the showcase art, it just looks really cool. And I see all these other people that are like, oh, that's this like really famous artist that did this book I've never heard of or whatever. And like, so other people are excited about it for that reason, but I don't know any of that stuff. And it still looks really cool to me. So I think if it's working for me, and I know as little about that as possible, it's got to be exciting to other people as well who are like me that don't even, that aren't super connected to that world, but still can just appreciate how cool the art is. So I think it's going to do really well.
All right. So I guess last topic was Mark Rosewater's post about, are there too many words on cards nowadays? Kamigawa has topped the charts in terms of like number of words per card. And faces, I guess, of cards and things like that as well. So, like, what do you guys think about like the complexity of the game? Is this too much? Have we crossed the threshold? Are we just right?
I mean,
this is fine. I don't even think it's that bad anymore. Maybe
fine.
I've gotten used to it.
It's fine for me. As someone who loves Time Spiral, is like my favorite set, and I played Magic for a long time, I do think there is a couple of concerns that I would have. One is I'm not really sure how I would start teaching a new player to play Magic with the current crop of cards. They are pretty complex, and I don't know where would you even start? Like, what deck would you give someone if you wanted them to learn Magic for the first time? So I do think that's a concern. The other concern I have is I feel like some of the uses of words have not been very productive, with maybe like the Strixhaven Deans being the biggest example. Like, those are cards that have a ton of words, but those words don't really do anything. So it seems like a waste to have all that complexity almost unnecessarily, when other cards, like the March cycle from Kamigawa, they have a huge wall of text, but it kind of makes sense. Like, all those words are being used to describe this cost reduction effect, and then the actual effect is pretty straightforward and gronkable. So I feel like it really depends on the cards. The other thing is, like, I feel like it makes paper worse just having so many double face cards. It doesn't affect me directly because I don't really play a whole lot of paper, but I've certainly heard a lot of paper players be like, like, it's pretty obnoxious that so many cards are double face that I got to constantly be unsleeving, re-sleeving, which, if they're not going to put shuffling into standard because it takes too much time, I got to imagine that having tons of people, their games be slowed down because they got to constantly be taking cards out of their sleeves and trying to flip them around and back and forth. Like, that's probably not a great thing either, right? So it works for me, but I do think there is a concern about new players and and paper players to a lesser extent, but how do you teach someone to play Magic with the current crop of super complex cards? I don't really have an answer to that.
I'm concerned about me, Seth. I don't understand any of these cards. Like, I think after we do previews, right, you start thinking like, what deck should I brew for standard? How can I break the meta? Like, the set is so large now, I can't even like piece that together. Like, there's so many cards, they do so many things, they have so many sides. Like, I can't think and like build a deck in my mind. Like, I've run out of brain capacity. So I feel like it's a problem beyond new players. I think, as a longtime player, there's just too many things. There's too many mechanics now. Like, what does ninjutsu actually do? Like, when I read Umezawa, there's no reminder text for what ninjutsu does, right? So I need to know exactly, does it have to hit? Does it have to be unblocked? What are the exact rules for ninjutsu? And, that card is the same, right? You have to pick another card with reminder text for ninjutsu to figure it out. So I actually think it's too complex for long-time Magic players. Like, it's really hard to brew because you need to know every card in Standard and what every card does. And it's really hard to conceptualize that when the cards are so complicated. Like, each saga has 18 abilities, a backside, an attack trigger, an ETB. It's so complicated. So I actually wish it was simpler. You'd be like, Delver, it's a 3/2 that flies. Okay, that's already pretty complex back in its day, right? But now we have 5 ETB triggers and all this nonsense, right? So it's a little difficult to brew with.
I don't know, man. I think maybe I've just gotten used to it, but I feel like Magic players are, I would say generally pretty smart, right? We keep track of a lot of things already. We deal with a lot of overlaps of different mechanics, the stack, all this other stuff. So a few additional sentences just doesn't seem that bad anymore. Maybe it's because of playing in a world where there's just lots and lots of text now, and that's totally fine. I think I've gotten used to it. It doesn't faze me anymore.
But what if you had 2 hours a week to play Magic?
2 hours a week, but regardless, I mean,
and how much of that time is just spent literally reading cards, right? Like literally just reading, right, and trying to understand them, let alone actually trying to play the game.
But I mean, Magic players, whether or not they play for half an hour a week or 30 hours a week, they all can still remember mechanics and interactions and cards that have existed from 20 years ago, right? So I don't know. We keep track of a lot of things, and I don't know. I don't think it's that bad anymore. As long as it's not unnecessary. Where in that, a game that I have been recently playing again a lot is Yu-Gi-Oh! And a game that needs keywords and stuff like that is Yu-Gi-Oh! They have a lot of cards and their cards are smaller than Magic cards, and they have a lot of things that could just be simply solved, save 400 text spaces by keywords. But Magic, Magic just has keywords, so that limits things. And the extra long text doesn't take away from the gameplay so far, so it's fine. It's only once it's pointless, how I feel a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards have a lot of just unneeded words.
I mean, I kind of feel like the channel lands, I don't know, maybe have some unneeded word. When I read those cards, do you think they need the random legendary cost reduction? Why is it even on there? The cards would read a lot shorter and a lot cleaner and play the same in a lot of situations if that wasn't even on there. So is that a case where those words are unnecessary and they could have made essentially the same card with half the text on it by not putting that on there? Or do you think that that's actually something that improves the card? Those are kind of the decisions that I wonder about. Do we really need that? Or would we benefit more if we had half the text and did not have that ability, which I guess is designed for Commander primarily because you always have a legend in the command zone. But I don't know. What do you think about something like that? Is that an unnecessary word, or is that actually improving the card in the game?
I mean, haven't we had abilities like this before? Essentially now there's just kind of a name tied to it.
I mean, we've had channel before. But
right?
That's asking, do we need to reduce the cost for each legendary? Could you not balance the initial cost and just remove this altogether?
Yeah, and it would have half the text on it, basically, if you didn't have the one less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Does that do enough in terms of gameplay to make it worth 3 extra lines of text on the card? I think those are some of the decisions we got to make.
You got to think about it though, gameplay wise, and then you also juggle the flavor side of Magic, right? And last time we were in Kamigawa, it was heavily legendary based, right? We had Hero's Demise, which was just a Doomblade for legendary creatures only. So there was lots of legendaries, and this was before Commander. So, I think it makes sense why they would try to do something like that. For each legendary you control, it would be cheaper. So yeah, I think that checks. The lands, they make sense here. Now, if this were just something in every set where it was just kind of completely pointless, then yeah, I think that's time where maybe we can dial it back a little bit. But in the plane of Kamigawa, these channel lands make sense.
I mean, I agree with both of you, right? Wizards obviously added this for flavor reasons, but I also agree with Seth that is that needed? Right? Like it just adds complexity and effective. Like if the answer is effectively you always have a legendary, then just make the channel cost like one less, right? Or, if effectively you never have a legendary, just remove that line. It doesn't do anything. So like I think there's ways to balance this such that you don't have to add that extra line. And I know they're adding it for flavor purposes, but like this one card is not make or break, right? But when they do this for like literally every card for every set every year, then like it starts becoming like overload, right? But as a one-off, it doesn't matter. But we're done with one-offs, right? Like every set has its own gimmick. We staple on more words, more sides, more counters, more saga things, right? Like remember, like double-faced cards were rare. Sagas were a one-time thing. Planeswalkers were rare, right? And now they're very common, right? And each of those cards is like literally like 4 or 5 cards combined, right? So they're very complex. And, like just think of like something like banding. Even though it's one word, you just add banding to a card. The rules around banding are very complex. So you need to know a lot and you have a lot to be thinking about to understand what that one word actually means.
Not really.
So,
banding just reads unblockable.
I don't know. Like Wizards doesn't have good UX, user experience, right? They're optimizing for, I guess, brewing. Right? Like the more words you add, right? The more complexity you add, the more interesting it becomes because you can find like really narrow pockets. But as a new player, like at some point it's so overloading that you just ignore it all and do something else. Right? It's kind of like League of Legends or something. Like people just don't play it because it's so complex, right? Or like StarCraft, like RTSs, and they go, what do they play? They play Fortnite. Much simpler, right? Counter-Strike, something like that, where you just shoot someone and it's very easy to understand, as opposed to learning like 5 years of game theory and like all the nuances, and you have to have the exact correct build, otherwise your game is unplayable. Like it's very difficult compared to just like loading up some like, shooter, you shoot someone in the face and like, I understand that. So it's an interesting juggle.
I got to ask you one more question. I know we're going a little bit long, but did you know how the shrines worked? I want to know if I'm like the only one who didn't get this and it's going to be really obvious to everyone, or if everyone's going to be confused. So the new mythic shrine that we got in the set boosters, Go Shintai of Life's Origin, it makes a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. Whenever a shrine enters the battlefield, it is legendary enchantment creature shrine. When you read that card, do you just know that shrine isn't a creature type and that those creatures it's making actually have no creature type? Like, is that obvious to everyone, or is everyone going to be playing these cards wrong? Like, I think this is another example.
I don't even understand, as you explained it to me. What is the gotcha? The tokens?
The tokens and actually the creature itself, it's has no creature type. It is not a shrine. If you name whatever, your metallic mimic and name shrine, it does nothing with this. Like that's its enchantment type, which is different, even though it reads exactly like every other creature does. So if you play a changeling, it's not a shrine that's triggering your stuff. If you have whatever, choose a creature type, you can't name shrine because it's not actually a creature type. That's an enchantment type, even though it's making creatures that have that type.
But it says legendary enchantment creature shrine.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. It has no creature type.
I've been duped?
Yes, it has no.
It's clearly on the creature type line. How? Like, what is the actual rule stipulate? Like shrine is
an enchantment type. It's an enchantment type. And I guess you should just know that if you're a Magic player, you should know that shrine is an enchantment type and not a creature type. So all these people are talking about brewing around, changelings and so forth, and it just is straight up doesn't work. And I was confused by it too. When I read that, to me, that reads like a creature type shrine, making shrines that are creature type shrine. But that's actually not what the card is saying, like, at all. And I don't even know, like, I didn't get that. You didn't get that. We've been playing Magic for a long time. There's no way someone buying, the Commander Precon and putting this together or something is gonna know that. Like, so the complexity, like, seeps in these weird ways, too. Like, I get why they wanted to make these cards, and I'm glad that they did. But, like, to me, that's a almost overwhelming level of complexity that how would some average player know that type doesn't mean creature type, even though it looks like every other creature in your collection where it does mean creature type. Like, how would you know that unless you've been playing since Kamigawa a million years ago and know all these like quirks of the rules? So I think Wizards does need to be aware of some of that stuff, because like I would have played that card wrong if I wasn't hearing WotC people talk about it on social media or whatever and explain it, and me still not really gronk why it is the way it is. But so I think there is some complexity concerns with stuff like that.
I go old school playground rules. The shrine is a creature type.
Yeah.
It works. A changeling is a shrine, and you just do it.
Rule 0.
I think what made that confusing is the fact that, well, if you look at all how the old shrine cards are, they all say legendary, enchantment, and then shrine, right? But it's once they threw creature in there that made the formatting kind of like weird. So I think that could have just been like a little bit of a change on the formatting when it comes to that part. But for the most part, yeah, like shrine is to how like an arcane spell is, or tribal enchantment, something like that, right? But once they threw the creature type into the enchantment part, that did make things a little weird.
Yeah, a little confusing. But anyway, don't play it with your whatever creature type matter stuff, because it's not going to do what you're hoping that it does, even though it's a really cool card. But anyway, we went super long. I think that brings us to the end of episode 367 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. We didn't really get to fish mail today. Hopefully next week, now that spoiler season is over, we will. Richard, if people want to send in some fish mail, how do they go about doing that?
All right. Hit us up on Twitter at MTGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll go through some of the backlogged questions we have next week.
So anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 367. Thanks to Richard and Krim for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a wonderful week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.